Okay, I call to order the Finance and Administration Committee. Present we have to my right Commissioner Ben Olszewski, to my left Commissioner Damon Mullen, and I think the others were already introduced. Are there any presentations or announcements? There are not. Okay. Next, approval of the minutes. Are there any Commissioner comments on the minutes? No. Or questions? Community? None? Okay. We'll move them into the record. Next, review of, acceptance and approval of the following monthly reports: Director of Finance, Tax Enforcement Officers, and Investment Activity Report. I don't have any questions or comments on any of those.
I don't either. I'm good.
John, do you have anything to add to any of those?
To any of those reports, no. Just wanted to make mention that, as when everyone knows, the tax books didn't go out 2 weeks ago, so we're starting to see a greater influx of cash now.
Okay.
Typically, in the beginning of the year, for cash flow purposes, we're trying to make ends meet before some of these substantial numbers come in. So those numbers will EIT.
So you're watching the cash every day, huh?
Yeah.
Sounds good. Any public community comments or questions? Okay. Next, review of the financial statements, revenue and expense summaries. We've only had a month, but anybody have any comments or anything to say? John?
No, other than that, I know you provided a couple of questions over the weekend.
Thank you.
Is there a way to put any additional items on those responses that I provided? And do you have anything else further?
I do not.
No.
Anybody?
Thank you.
And thank you for getting that
Yeah, sure.
to us. Community? Okay, we'll move on to personnel. First, we have the reappointment of Maureen Wennick, present here tonight for another community event, as she's Ward 4 representative, being reappointed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council. I absolutely recommend her and thank her for wanting to be reappointed.
I guess I'll second it. She is in Ward 4, so yeah, I'll second.
Okay, good. Any community comments?
Second as well.
Okay. We'll move that one forward to the board meeting. Next, we have the reappointment of John Connell on the Historical Commission. I'm in favor of that.
Second.
Another reappointment. Okay, and then we have a new appointment, Christina Richmond. Is she here? Okay. Let's see. She actually has volunteered for 2 positions, so we thank her for that. It's always good to have new people. And recommend that we move her forward to the board.
A second.
Any community comments? Okay, that's for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council, the at-large position. And she has also volunteered for the Human Relations Commission. So I want to move her forward for that too.
Second.
Any community comments? Okay, another reappointment, or no, another new appointment, Jennifer Watanabe on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council to fill the at-large position. She sent some, she's not here, is she? Okay. She sent information wanting to do this. She moved to Upper Moreland about 7 years ago. She's very happy here and passionate about our parks and open space. So I'm happy to move her forward.
Second.
Any community comments? Okay, she's moved forward. And finally, a new appointment, Valee Dots, on the Police and Fire Civil Service Commission. Is she here? Oh, hello, thank you for coming. Did you want to say anything or just, okay, thank you for being here. So another new volunteer, which is great. She's already been involved in a lot of other community service things, so thank you, and I recommend we move her forward to the board.
Second.
Okay. Any community comments? Okay. Next, we have the following vacancies. One on the Advisory Planning Agency, 2 on the Historical Commission, 1 on the Human Relations Commission, and one on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Council for a Ward 1 resident, and also on that council for a Ward 2 resident. So if you're interested, please send a letter with your interest, resume if you have it, to Matt Canlin, mcanlin@uppermoreland.org. Okay. Next on the agenda is to discuss the Township Police Station funding options and determine the next steps.
Yeah, this is a continuation of our conversation from last meeting. We have representatives from PFM here again. Since our last meeting, there was a request that we evaluate, or that PFM evaluate, the feasibility of having 2 borrowings as opposed to 1. So originally what we talked about was doing a borrowing this spring for the entire amount for whatever the project was that we were going to be doing. So one question was, well, would it make more sense to do 2 borrowings? And PFM looked at that, and there are some benefits to that, and they're going to be here to discuss those. And also the other housekeeping items that we'll need to do for the borrowing. Some of those are in your meeting book. And really just continue the conversation. If there's any questions that the committee has about the financing.
Good evening. I'm Brad Remick with PFM. With me is Brandy McClendon as well.
Hello.
And we just wanted to make sure we're here to address questions about the analysis. If you'd like me to go through it quickly, I can do that, and then kind of try and answer some questions. I appreciate the feedback in terms of some of the things that were maybe not clear in the analysis or wanted some more explanation. So I'll try and hit on those things as I go through this. In the analysis, there's page numbers on the bottom right-hand side. Page number 2, that's a very colorful chart. And it kind of gives us, if you recall last time, I kind of give you an idea of what the municipal bond market is right now. One thing I wanted to clarify is this chart is an index, okay, of a municipal bond data, or BVAL, what we call index over time. When you see some of the numbers that we estimated for the township in terms of borrowing amounts, typically what happens is when the township borrows money, it prices to a spread off the index. So it won't exactly mirror the exact interest rate in the index. It goes as a spread to those based on your credit quality. So the township's a very good credit, so your spreads would be more narrow when you look at the numbers. Whereas if you're somebody's a lower credit, their spreads are wider. It's an addition to the index at the different points along the curve. So I just wanted to clear that up.
So are you saying that it's the first chart on that page?
Yep.
Is that right? So that's the yield without a spread?
Correct. That's
see.
just the market. So if you look at the top chart, there's different data points, year 1 through year 30. And typically what happens when you price a bond is whatever that index is, depending on your credit quality, it's a spread to that. So that's why the numbers you'll see that we've assumed on some of your borrowers are higher than what the index is. We did then, on the next couple pages, kind of put together, we got some information from the architect. We talked a little bit about how much money would need to be borrowed, how much interest would be earned over time, and we tried to compare the two scenarios there. Obviously, if you borrowed the more money earlier, you're going to earn more interest. For the basis of this analysis, we used a conservative interest rate at 3.5%. We know that something more like 5 is what you're earning right now. But because we were looking over an 18-month period, we're not here to forecast what the Federal Reserve is going to do, but we didn't want to overestimate those interest earnings just because there could be some action taken by the Federal Reserve that would reduce your earnings because they control short-term rates, and we didn't want to overestimate that. But we do understand that at this point in time, you're earning more than the 3.5 that's in the analysis. But that was the rationale for that. Page number 5, we put the estimated payments for a one-step plan. So when we ran the numbers in January, we had assumed this certain spread in those interest rates, okay? We went back and we looked at what a township in Pennsylvania might price as a spread with more recent data. So we narrowed that spread by about 30 to 35 basis points. So if you were to go back to your January analysis, you would have seen that interest rate be more like 4.4. We tightened that up to 4.1 to be more realistic. So that's kind of what happened, why you see a reduction there from what we presented.
That's good
in
news.
January. Yeah.
Okay.
So we were a little bit more confident for the illustration, at least, to tighten that up.
Yeah,
So that's
and
a
we're
good
getting closer to when we'd actually go to market, right?
Right, so that's what we
Okay.
wanted to do there. So if you're flipping back and forth to January, that's the main thing that occurred there as well. Then what we did, again, we did for the two-step financing, again, we used the same interest rate on your earnings of 3.5% that we did on the first one for the reason I mentioned earlier. And then we created a new page 8, which kind of lists the payments out for a $10 million financing now and $5 million about a year from now. And those would be, again, as was mentioned, that would let the district or the township's bonds be termed bank qualified. And if I recall, I mentioned last meeting that typically those bank qualified bonds come with two main benefits. The first is typically the spreads that they price off that index are tighter than if you're non-bank qualified. Okay, so that typically it's a tenth, right now it's a tenth to 0.15 or so percent, that it's a little bit tighter, okay? So that's benefit number one.
Okay, so instead of, for the current numbers here, instead of a 4.12%, you estimate it would be about 4.03%.
4.03 on the first one and 4% on the second one.
If
That's
it's
what we
the
did that.
bank, if it's under $10 million.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
The second main benefit is if you do bank qualified bonds, typically the market will accept a shorter call feature. What a call feature is basically your prepayment ability. So if you're able to get to that date sooner, and maybe I should back up, if you do over 10 million, the market typically is more like 8 years. So if that date is closer for the township, that gives you the option to do it earlier than if you did the non-bank qualified, as we call it, bonds. So that option would come earlier for you. You don't have to do it. It's just an option that the township would reserve or preserve. So that's a little bit more difficult to quantify in terms of dollars and cents. But rather than having to wait till, rather than having to wait till 2032, the township in 2029, for example, on the first bond, would have that option. And you might, with that option, you might want to refinance and lower your interest rate. Mm-hmm. You may want to refinance and shorter your repayment term because maybe you have more funds. You know, it's kind of like when you refinance your home mortgage, right? Maybe some people start off at 30 years and then a couple of years into it, go to 15 if they can afford it. So that would be an option there. Or the other option would be in 5 years, you could just simply prepay some or part of it. So it just gives you the option sooner. So that's a more difficult number to put on that, but it's just something that you should be aware of that comes with it. But those are really the only two main things that I can think of for the benefit of the back quad. That's really those two things, is the lower interest rate and so forth. So now one of the things we don't know is if you delay your financing on the last $5 million in a year from now, what's the market going to be like then? Right? You don't know that.
And that is a concern. We hope that it'll be better, but
Yep. And
it's a
one
risk.
of the things, I don't know if I mentioned in January or not, is that right now we have seen interest rates in the municipal bond market decline since Halloween. It bounced up a little bit here after the first of the year, maybe it went down about 125 basis points or 1.25%. It's now bounced up about 0.25 or another 0.25% bounced back up. And the main reason that we understand that is occurring is that the market is forecasting the moves by the Federal Reserve for later this year. Okay, so at first, towards the end of last year, the market was anticipating 4 or 5 or 6 possible rate cuts by the Federal Reserve. The data has not supported that over recent times. So there's less of a discussion of that many. They do expect there to be rate cuts in the second half of the year. But why I'm mentioning that to you now is that if nothing happens, we might see the market adjust rates up even if the Fed hasn't done anything, if that makes any sense. Because if the market forecasts it and it doesn't happen, that means they've overpriced this in. So we could see that. Again, I can't predict rates, but it's not impossible to think that rates could go up depending on economic data. I can't assure you that in a year from now they would be lower. One thing that I think we didn't do a great job of was the last page. Page 10 is summarizing kind of what these numbers are, what the differences are. And we tried to put a number associated with what's the difference in your debt service payments. If you did 2 financings, you'd have 2 closings, so you'd have some additional costs. That's something does not favor 2 financings. If you borrowed the money in pieces that I mentioned earlier and you didn't get it all up front, you'll earn less interest earnings, even at that 3.5% that we forecasted. So we tried to put something on that. But then also the payments come on less quickly. And what you have in your budget would then be available for other things. So we tried to isolate that. I think one thing that we want to go back and look at here is making sure that we didn't overcomplicate this because we assumed certain things about, and I know I'm going to get in the weeds here a little bit, but certain times when people buy bonds, they bid a certain interest rate and they'll pay a premium for those bonds. Sometimes they'll bid a lower interest rate and bid a discount for those bonds. And that goes into a lot of these rate calculations that we do along the way. So we tried to lay it out for you in a way that kind of puts something next to these different moving variables. I do but then we went back and we looked at, let's simplify this a little bit. Let's go back and just simply try and isolate certain things and get to one number. And I still think that number's pretty close to this. I just don't think this sheet outlined it as well now in retrospect as maybe we could have otherwise done that. I may
So you'll send us an update, maybe?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
That sounds like a good idea.
Okay, thank you.
A couple things that I did want to mention that, again, are not necessarily able to be calculated is that if you do 2 financings, we're going to need more time of the administration next year to do another credit rating, do another official statement, and things of that nature. So these folks and their teams have to go through it twice, and that would take them away from other things. Again, difficult for me to quantify, but I do want to say that if we do 2 financings, we'll probably need to do that. The one other good thing about it would be that when you get to all your bids and the project's going along, and I know you have some other things you want to do and maybe things you won't be able to do or what have you, if you buy yourself a year, we'll be able to have a little bit more information as to how much money you really need. Are you hitting contingencies? Things of that nature, and you have another year to think a little bit about anything else that you may want to do. So that's another, you kind of go into it with a little bit more. I know the plan was not to do the bond issue, even if we did it all at once until the bids are in for the big project. But as things go along, it buys the township more time to really figure out, okay, do I need 5 million or do I just need 4 million or do I need 5.5? So that's one thing, again, difficult to put a number on, but just something I thought I should mention as a benefit of doing 2 financings. But then you have to see me again a year from now, so. But we can do those things. I think that's a good idea to try and get something a little bit easier for this last page really to summarize it for you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any better idea when we're going to go out to bid?
I think we're still hoping for middle or end of March.
So are we securing this loan before putting it out to bid, or?
I think the idea was to wait till the bids come in, and then we'd have a better idea of what we're.
Because we're planning on a $15 million loan, but, what if the bids come in around, say, 19, 20 million?
Right.
What's the plan? That happens?
Yeah, I definitely want to wait. So we put it out to bid mid to end March, and then how long till the bids come?
Hopefully, say end of April.
Okay.
And then we'd have, and I think in a perfect world, we'd be starting construction June. Now, maybe that optimism doesn't actually come through, but I think because of the volatility in the market and the construction costs, I think that was a suggestion that actually we had talked about. You know, do you wait to do the financing until after you know what the prices are?
And then I was also wondering, so you guys did have a meeting with the debt rating agency, is that right?
Well, not yet.
Oh, okay, when's that?
Yeah.
We don't have that scheduled just yet.
You wait till you're
One of the things
closer?
that once we have that meeting, we have committed to the cost, and it's not, insubstantial. So until I know for sure that you are ready to go, we probably would suggest that we wait until that. So because I don't want you to incur that cost.
And do you think this will affect our debt rating?
I think you'll be fine. I think you're going to continue to maintain your rating. One thing that, as it was mentioned earlier, you have this in the budget. You were planning for it. You were expecting it. So I do not anticipate, but that being said, I have to confess I haven't read all your audits or financials,
Okay.
since we last went to do this. I guess it was a year and a half ago. So, but I don't think this in itself would be a problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you suggesting we do anything at the next board meeting? Or
You
not?
want to talk about some of the other kind of housekeeping items?
If you did something yeah, okay, sure. I can
Sorry,
address
yeah,
that.
our next board meeting's only a week away.
Right. And that would be something where you could just kind of authorize us to keep moving along and working on this. It wouldn't commit you to any financing at this point. It'd just say, hey, continue to work with your solicitor, LaShawn, with your bond counsel at Obermeyer. This kind of gives direction to John that when we ask him for information to do this stuff for the rating agency, that we do that. But the actual ordinance for the debt wouldn't come till later. And even when that's approved by the board, based on what I've outlined here, there would still be another step before you've committed to the financing. It just kind of gets the ball rolling. This would be
Okay.
next week. Not required. It's just something that's belt and suspenders. We did get in touch with your bond counsel folks at Obermeyer, and they did a great job of putting something together for you. I don't know if it was in the packet or not, but it was a parameters ordinance. I don't know if you remember me mentioning that before, and that is where the ordinance would set forth certain maximums for the financing to occur, rather than have it scheduled on the one specific date of the month that the commissioners meet. Give you more flexibility to, rather than have, and the example I used last time was your April meeting's the Monday after Easter, right? So that might not be the best day to have gone and sold bonds. I don't think we're going to get there yet, but things like that come up. And we're seeing more and more local governments in Pennsylvania do these parameters ordinances to not force the bid to occur on a day of a meeting, if you know.
On a day what?
On the day of a commissioners meeting.
Oh, okay.
So you have the ordinance paperwork done in advance and so forth. So we had a draft at least provided so you could see what this might look like.
Yep.
And there's a lot of blanks in there. You have a lot of things that need to be done, but this is and this ordinance draft contemplates what the township's done in the past, and that is sold bonds versus a competitive sale on the internet. That's kind of what the township's used in the past. We can talk more about that, but I just wanted to make sure this is based on what you've done in the past. This is what something like this might look like. And I do, again, want to thank the Obermeyer team. They put this together pretty quickly.
So you say we've done this in the past. Was there another option we should consider?
What you had done in the past was actually take the bid on the day of a commissioner.
Oh, okay.
So
Got you.
what we're suggesting, or for your consideration, is that rather than do that, consider this parameters ordinance
Oh, got
idea.
you. Okay.
So there's more flexibility. I'm
Okay,
doing the
sounds
sale,
good.
but I wouldn't want to wake up on a Monday morning of a meeting that you have scheduled to take your bids and something happen.
Got it.
Something unfortunate happened over the weekend, whereby the market isn't, it gives us a little bit more flexibility. This is very important. So we don't want to box ourselves into one particular day. You can plan for it,
Okay.
but it's just the thought was here as well, just to give you an idea of what it might look like. There are a lot of blanks to fill in. And one of the things you could do, for example, is authorize an ordinance for the larger amount of money, because you can always go down, if that makes any sense. So if the bids came in and, you had decided that you wanted to do not 15, but 10, like the bank qualified for various reasons, you could do that. Can't go up, you can only go down. And typically these parameters ordinances, even if you wanted 15 million, you'd probably even make the number bigger, because when the bids come in, Brandy's gonna have to work her magic and make sure that the payments, are level for you over a 30-year period, and every piece of the bond changes. So it's kind of like you have to
Okay.
have some flexibility.
So are we going to have to decide the parameters before the bids come in? We'll at least have to decide that parameter.
So if the bids go out in, let's say, mid-March, let's say end of March.
Right.
Let's say the bids don't come in until the middle or end of April.
Right.
Which means the earliest the board would be formally approving would be at the May meeting.
That's fine.
So if we backed into that, what would that
Right.
look like? If we-
I think you just do it at the May meeting.
Okay,
So if that's the bid thing, we can do the parameters at the May meeting, right? And then we would have the bond sale or the auction or whatever shortly thereafter.
Okay.
Keeping in mind from when we actually price the bonds to when you close. In that scenario, if you're the May 6th? did you-
you say the end of April is when we get the bids?
Yeah. And then if the commissioners meet May, I don't know what that month
Early,
is.
first Monday in May.
Yeah, you could sell bonds at the middle part of May, and then you get your money in June.
Okay.
Typically 30 days after. Hopefully that would be sufficient.
Yeah, I think so. Does that sound like the way to go?
That feels like it
Okay.
makes sense, yeah. That-
But I don't think we're going to need this in April.
Okay, yeah,
know what I
so
mean?
there's nothing, so far, we don't need anything at the next board meeting, except we're just continuing
Just a nod.
Yeah.
to go.
Okay,
And that really wouldn't even be a resolution or anything, I guess, Sean. It's really just kind of approval to keep moving? Yes. Okay. Authorization. Yeah.
okay. You guys have any? Matt, John?
Did that take care of all the questions that you had?
I think it did, yeah. I do want to see an update
Okay.
of the numbers. And yeah, I think we do need to decide, and any input you guys have, whether we do the one bond or the two
Right.
this year, next year. So thank
Great.
you for being here again.
Yeah, great
Community, any comments? Okay,
All right. have a
thank
good
you,
night.
Brad.
Brad.
Okay, next on the agenda is the Clifton Larson Allen LLP audit fee schedule.
Take this one, John. You wanna take-
Yeah, sure. So after speaking with the township's auditors, they proposed an adjusted audit fee schedule as all professional services costs continue to rise. I provided the committee with, I asked CLA to provide a history of those expenses over the few years prior, so that you could see.
Yeah, that was helpful.
So-
So I do remember prior, I thought we had like a 2 or 3 year contract at one point, but now I guess we've just been, the last 2 years, just annual. So they've gone up a lot.
Well, this next year, we're going to have a single audit due to the federal money we got for the FEMA grant.
Oh, so that's one reason it went up? Well, it went up in 2023.
Well, I mean, it's going to go up again this coming year in part because of the single audit. I don't know if was there anything else, or is it just kind of general expense increases and then the single audit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, what do you mean, single
So
audit?
single audit is a term they use for, it's basically a whole nother report that needs to be issued when a municipality spends a specific dollar amount of federal money that they've received.
So we hit that last year.
I think it's 800,000.
It's, I want to say it's 750, but that was triggered with all of the FEMA amounts.
Oh, wow, okay,
So it makes the audit more expensive.
I see. Well, at least there's a reason, because it has gone up a lot for, actually, it went up a lot in 2022 also, and now, okay. Oh, because that was with the ARPA money too, in 2022.
So just to remind you, I mean, I think we're happy with this firm. They've done a good job, but the board does have the option of choosing someone else.
Well, that was my question, if you guys think we should get some other bids for this work.
I would think we go through this year, maybe.
My opinion would be to go through this year for it. They're familiar
Okay.
with the team. We're close to, especially with the work that was put into the 22 audit, and that kind of drug along a little bit. I'd be more comfortable, and I think the rest of the finance team would be more comfortable dealing with the individuals that they've been working with on a daily basis. I haven't heard anything to the contrary on that, so I think that we should continue with this one and then
Maybe next
assess
year.
after for the
Okay.
24 audit.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Either you have any comments?
So am I reading this right? It looks like almost a 20% increase in fees. Yeah. Okay. Did they give an explanation? Because that's not just like, you know, inflationary cost. That's
It includes that, but also at the same time, I think a lot of their other audit engagements that the firms are using. So the term they use is realization, and they're looking at their billable hours versus the amount of time that is spent on specific audits, and whatever internal matrix they have in their firm, their realization is on the lower end. So partners are typically lead. So I was speaking with Andy Lee, who's the principal on the account, and then speaking with him, let him know that this is on the higher end for what we would expect. But then going back and forth on, and I tried to include those realization numbers that he saw. So basically, they're putting in a lot of work and not seeing the same.
They're
amount
saying
as
for
if they
us,
have
our
from other
account
jobs.
specifically,
Yep.
it's been a lot of time.
But then had mentioned specifically to continue the professional relationship with the township because they've been so invested already and enjoy working with us as well.
Can I say something? If that's the case, why don't they lower the price?
Well, that goes to this whole piece. I mean, what we're going to try and do this year is, I feel like the audit last year drug, so now this year's realization we would expect to be a lot higher on their end because they're not going to be putting in as much of the work as they were in prior years. If we get them all this stuff faster once we approve going forward with this, and this is still a tentative amount, all the amounts, the dollar amounts will be fixed as a result of the engagement letter that we would still have to get. So these aren't locked in, so if there's anything.
Oh, okay.
Back, this isn't like a solid, here's the professional services fee, we're going to agree to this amount, but just a tentative proposed schedule.
Got it. So I am okay with this, but I do think next year we should get some other bids. Make sure there's still market.
I'm
What do
locking
you
a
think?
contract too. I think we need a contract.
Yeah, in the past, we did I thought we did a 3-year contract.
You can, yeah, and I'll talk to them about that as well and see.
Okay. Maybe they'll give us a better rate if we'll sign a 3-year contract. with
True.
them, So, okay. Ben?
yeah, nothing further.
Okay. Anyone in the community? Okay. Thank you, John.
Yep.
All right. Next is proposal to perform inspection and testing of hazardous waste materials on the township building.
So this is the continuing design process, and because the township building is an older building, we've got to do a hazardous materials evaluation. And Eagle Industrial Hygiene Associates, you may recognize that name because we just approved for them for the FEMA buyout houses over on Surrey and Laurie. And they're a reputable company, they do good work. And so this would essentially tell us what materials here would need to be remediated. That would need to go into the bid documents. So hopefully whoever the contractor is would have to take care of that.
Okay. So, and it's 8,400?
I will say this.
Yeah.
It's a little frustrating because we may not do this building, but I think we need to do it to get accurate
The
bid
bids.
numbers.
Okay.
Okay, that was gonna be my question, but I'm good.
Yeah, we may not get totally accurate numbers if we don't have it included in there.
Okay. Okay, you're good with that?
Yeah.
Ben?
Fine with me.
Any, Kip?
Yeah, I got the call on this, and especially Matt Hocker's done all the other buildings we've torn down and everything else. He's well versed on all the stuff that we've done that way. And he is the one that said, let's go with Eagle for it. And, and if we don't, we could run into a lot of problems later.
Sure.
Because of the pricing and all that stuff. So that way, get it done now. At least we know everything, you know, for what we're going to end up with doing and all that. So.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. We'll move that forward too. Next is proposal for police station / township building furniture design services.
This is separate from KCBA, but they had recommended this firm. And this is to do exactly what it says. So the police station will need furniture, township building will need furniture. And so this is the proposal to prepare the design for both those buildings.
It is for both the buildings. I wasn't real clear when I read the letter.
Yeah.
In some places, it seemed to say one building, and
It should be both.
it's for both. And we have to do both, again, to get an accurate bid.
Right.
Okay. And it's $7,200.
And that will actually be a separate bid from the construction bid. But the reason they want that design is they try and put that into the plans of where desks are going, and just so people make sure the outlets are going in the right places, and we're not. So they like having the furniture plans in the plans when they're building it, just to double check to make sure they're doing things the way it should be done. But the bid for furniture would be separate.
Okay.
I have a question. So is this basically a plan or design as to where furniture, they're not designing actual furniture, they're designing where to put furniture?
Both. So they're actually not designing it. We would tell them we want mid-grade office furniture. We kind of give them our specs.
Right.
They then give us options, design, and then we pick those, and then they kind of lay them out. So it's coming up with a layout and then identifying the actual product that we would be, and they would be putting together essentially what would amount to a bid document that we could then go out to a vendor, and they may even have suggestions for vendors that we could use. Also, what we could do is they can buy on CoStar too. So the easier way is just to go ahead and buy it on CoStars, which is what we would suggest. So you could do it either way.
What is it?
Oh, it's a purchasing co-op, I guess for lack of a better word, at the state level, so you don't have to go out to bid. So oftentimes we'll buy police cars or other vehicles on CoStars. It's already been bid by the state of Pennsylvania, so it just satisfies that requirement for bidding. So it makes purchasing a lot easier and streamlined. So we can do it either way. I would recommend, obviously, that we do purchase on CoStars. It's just a lot easier to do, but we would have that option.
Okay, I'm good with moving that forward. You both?
Yeah.
I'm good.
Okay. Next, no old business, no new business. Any community comments besides what we've discussed? Any commissioner comments? Okay, we're adjourned, this committee.